What a day it's been, guys. At last, Justin Trudeau finally confronts Donald Trump. It has been months of this nonsense. Just look at this shit. Look at this shit.
But Sir, real fast, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada.
I guess we're so used to Donald Trump just being wild that no one is asking if he's on shrooms or something. It's a valid question. Might explain some of the delusions. I mean, he's talking about acquiring Greenland, making Canada the 51st state, taking the Panama Canal by force. It's a total piss take. Donald Trump is a troll. But you know what? He's not my president, so who gives a shit? What I do care about is that he continues to walk all over Canada the way he's been in the last few months. Do you remember how this all started? Just weeks after he got elected, Donald Trump announced that on day one, which is coming real quick, by the way, that's January the 20th. Trump said that on day one, he would introduce 25% tariffs on goods coming from Canada and Mexico. So after he said that, Trudeau runs off to Mar-a-Lago to try and talk him down, right? Obviously, those tariffs would tank our economy because we continue to have this unhealthy dependence on the United States. Like literally 75% of our trade is with the States. Like that's not a good idea. Anyways, Trudeau goes up to Mar-a-Lago to try and convince him to not follow through on the tariffs. Instead, Trump doubles down and says Canada might as well become the 51st state if we cannot cope with the tariffs. On many occasions since then, he has referred to Justin Trudeau as the governor of Canada. Now, that's another piss take. It's an absolute piss take. Now, I wasn't expecting Justin Trudeau to one-up him. No one can one-up Trump. He's a wild man. He's just wild like that. The way Justin Trudeau talks about working on the relationship with the U.S., though, it's hilarious. Like, it sounds like a couple that really should be divorced, but stay together for the kids. It's been embarrassing. That's why Trudeau's response today is so important. Trudeau said on Twitter, and I'm going to quote this for you because this is a really big moment. He says, "There isn't a snowball's chance in hell," which is basically nothing. He says, "There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being each other's biggest trading and security partner." You know what? Compared to what he's been saying all this time, I'll take this. I'll take this, Justin Trudeau. Like, finally, something. Like, you don't just sit there and let someone disrespect your country and you like that. Like, you say something. So, you know what? I'm ready for this version of Justin Trudeau. I'm ready for this Justin Trudeau with zero fucks to give. So say some shit, Justin. Say something. I mean, if this is a negotiating tactic from Trump, we certainly are not positioning ourselves for a favorable bargain by being weak. You get people like Daniel Smith, the premier of Alberta, saying we should convince Americans of our value. Like, what the heck does that even mean? Like, that's not a great position to negotiate from. Now, I'm not saying we divorce the U.S. That would be a fantasy. We share the longest land border in the world with the U.S. So, of course, we trade with them, but it is very unhealthy for us to continue to depend on them like we do. The other thing I actually wanted to address in this video is this notion that the U.S. is subsidizing Canada out of the goodness of their heart. It is simply not true. I'll give you a simple example just for context here. The example I'll give you is with oil and gas, right? That's Canada's biggest export to the States. Oil drives industry. It moves people around from place to place, amongst other things, right? So as long as industries around the world are still run on oil and gas, you cannot decouple growth from oil production. So in order for the U.S. to sustain their GDP growth year over year, at the moment, you need oil. So I'm going to show you a funny chart, okay? So many people will look at this chart and see that America has been producing a lot more oil than they consume since 2019. So you'll see this chart and say, maybe the US really doesn't need Canadian crude like Trump has been saying. Well, there's a little bit of that story that you're missing. The US produces mostly light, sweet crude from all that fracking, right? But the US doesn't produce enough heavy crude to meet its needs. And heavy crude typically gets blended with the light crude during refining because heavy crude tends to be cheaper. Plus, it allows you to make a wide range of refined products. The US has a bit of a big boy problem. A lot of the heavy crude they make is in places like Alaska, California, and the Gulf of Mexico. Now, to be fair, California refines quite a lot of oil locally, but some of the other US refineries capable of refining heavy oil are in places like Texas, Indiana, and Illinois. Distance matters here because heavy oil is very viscous and can be very difficult to transport through pipes, right? Plus, you need to keep these refineries running all the time, essentially, in order to make the cost make sense. So for places like Indiana and Illinois, it's actually closer to get heavy crude from Alberta than it would be to get it from California. You add on top of that the fact that Canadian crude, such as the Western Canadian Select, WCS, often trades at a discount to global benchmarks like the West Texas Intermediate, the WTI. So my point here is that the US isn't just buying our crude because they care for their polite neighbors. No. They buy our stuff because they're getting a good deal, right? So that's where I'll stop on that. All of that said, I expect a lot of craziness coming from Trump in the next few weeks. I'll tell you this. I have never seen a president-elect, he's not even in office yet. I mean, that is wild to me. I've never seen a president-elect cause this much chaos before. So there is more to discuss, but I wanted to keep this video short and sweet. And if you're new to my content, please subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.